Josh Hoffman. Enjoyed talking with Josh. I've got to know him in the last few months. Really interesting man. Besides he being a Red Sox fan, we'll put that aside for a moment. But very interesting man. I do open with baseball and the designated hitter. And what his thoughts are there. Josh works in the compliance world, small to medium businesses, government agencies, many have to adopt this compliance so they're safe from attack. And there's CMMC, oh my goodness, there's NIST, there's a bunch of these kind of standards that are out there. So he helps small to medium businesses as well as managed service providers comply with these security standards for them and for their clients. A very important role as cybersecurity. Just every day we're hearing more and more attacks, and the bad actors are just getting better. And where are we with that? We have a great conversation also about management versus leadership. I like to bring this up just to kind of gain some insight and get more perspective on that. It's two very important roles in a business. A business needs to have both. Sometimes people think they're one and they're the other, but I wonder where you fit in that debate. But a great conversation with Josh Hoffman, Control Case. Thank you for listening and watching. Have a good day. Be well. Hi, I'm Joey Pinz, and here's my 45-second introduction. After starting my business in the 90s, I started developing poor habits of eating in my diet because I was working way too much. Before you know it, I found myself 340 pounds. The doctor told me if I don't lose the weight, I'm not going to see my daughter graduate. Took the next 7 months, lost 130 pounds. People think there's some secret. Ask me, how'd you lose that weight? Like there's some secret. There is no secret. How'd I lose the weight? Just one word: discipline. I've had other successes in life, and I attribute them all to discipline. Now, I'm not the king of discipline, but I believe that it can help all of us. Friends, colleagues convinced me to start a podcast. The podcast mission: how do we better ourselves and society? I talk to interesting people in health, fitness, sport, wellness, business, technology, science, art, and culture. And I eventually ask them how discipline plays a role in their life. Podcast vision: growth through learning from others. Josh Hoffman, I'm so excited to talk to you. Thanks for your time today. Pros and cons, Josh, of the designated hitter.
Oh my gosh. Oh, that's the coolest question ever. Look, I grew up as a Red Sox fan in the 1970s, and I got to watch these amazing DHs, people that got aged in their career. And so, look, I'm a Yaz guy. And
Carl Yastrzemski.
I know, like he was the number 8 at the plate. So, getting to watch him have the opportunity to extend his career
Right.
at a time that I was growing up, that was pretty special. And so that makes me very pro DH. On the other hand, look, I think it's pretty fun to watch competitive pitchers figure out how to get to the plate. And so like Greg Maddux comes to mind, right? Guy battled day in, day out. And when he came up to the plate, it wasn't the easy out. So look, in the end, I'm probably pro DH, but I'm probably about a 60-40 guy in that. What about you?
Do you want to connect with business leaders and engage consumers who take action? The Joey Pinz podcast delivers high-impact conversations to an audience of decision makers, entrepreneurs, and professionals across multiple industries. A fast-growing audience of highly engaged listeners, both B2B and B2C. Millions of listens and views across YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. Brands that sponsor us see real engagement, conversations, and brand loyalty. Whether you're looking to sell a service, promote a product, or establish thought leadership, our sponsorships offer premium ad placements, exclusive episode sponsorships, full season branding, and event partnerships. Don't just advertise, become part of the conversation. Visit us at joeypins.com/sponsor to get started, or email us at sales@joeypins.com. Joey Pinz Podcast, where thought leaders, brands connect. Well, I mean, you have the exceptions where Otani, he didn't pitch last year, although he didn't have a problem winning the World Series, but he wants to pitch and bat as well. And some would argue he's a better batter than pitcher. It's crazy.
Look, I love Otani. I think he's so good for the game. I really want the Babe Ruth conversations to stop. So until Otani pitches, wins 30 games in a year, keeps his arm alive for 15 years, right. So you think about what, Babe Ruth did. Look, I'm an Otani fan, but let's stop comparing him to others. He's his own guy. He's spectacular. The guy has Hall of Fame destiny written all over him. But he's an interesting character in the game right now.
And I could, I'm a Yankees fan. I'm south of Boston there. And so in the 70s, when the Yankees played, I mean, they would, I could think of Chili Davis and I could think of some of these players that you're right. It extended some of their play
Yeah.
to be a designated hitter. But then there's the argument of, getting hit by pitches and the pitcher wouldn't hit batters if they were batting. And there's all that argument as well.
Yeah, look, Pedro Martinez, like he's
Yeah.
a beast, right? So if you hit one of his players, he was coming after you, and he wasn't going after the same caliber of person.
Ah,
You might hit Rich Gedman, and then he's going to go up there and throw at Derek Jeter. I probably just got my years wrong in that.
right.
But
That's all right.
it's funny. Even though you're a Yankees fan, look, I married a Yankees fan,
Ah,
and which was one of the hardest things to do in life.
poor
At,
guy.
at our wedding, we made people choose between Red Sox cupcakes and Yankees cupcakes.
Wow.
And I'm in the wrong office right now, but I've got a Thurman Munson autographed picture on the
Do
wall.
you really?
Dude, look, as much as I grew up, hating the Yankees, look, I wore a Chris Chambliss first baseman's mitt when
Yeah.
I played baseball. I got Thurman Munson on the wall. Growing up with Reggie and all those guys, it was. I'm a fan of the game as much as anything, but I'm still Red Sox at heart. They're never going to take that away from me.
I mean, there's Ted Williams, Rice, Boggs, Wade Boggs, who played, the hot corner for the Red Sox and eventually won a World Series with the Yankees. So I never disliked the players. I just dislike the laundry, I guess.
Yeah, it's hard to watch players, and look, I don't know what your age is, but I'm old enough to be thinking about Sparky Lyle
Okay.
and
All right.
watching, Lyle go between teams, or if you want to get a little bit more recent, I think Johnny Damon ended up on the
That's
Yankees for
right.
a period of time,
That's right.
and you watch some of your favorite players wear another uniform. And it's a little bit heartbreaking at times. I'm glad that Fisk works for the Red Sox and he has for a long time now. But
Does
those
he?
years watching him wear the White Sox uniform, it was like a knife in the heart.
Hmm.
So it was just miserable. But it is hard sometimes to distinguish between the laundry and the player and who you love.
Hmm.
But just loving the game, there's no bad day at a baseball game.
I've been to Fenway. I never go to an away field wearing any, my attire. Actually, I really don't have much anyway. But those people, that go to Fenway and wear the Yankees stuff, or in the Bronx and wear the Red Sox stuff, I can't understand that. It's a little bit different now, Josh, because there's a lot of corporate and the seats are more expensive.
Yep.
But back when we were kids, those bleachers were $10 and $12, and there was questionable people, and they were just kind of looking to scrap, and I just don't know why you would tempt fate. I'm not saying one was worse than the other. They were both bad, but I've been in both locations. And why in the world would you wear a Yankees jersey going into the Red Sox, or vice versa? It's just tempting to me. Why poke the bear?
Well, I'll tell you why I wore my Red Sox jersey every time I went to Yankees.
Did you really?
Oh, absolutely.
And how'd that go?
I not well.
Yeah.
But you know what? It's funny. You have these two different personalities that you're dealing with. There's one that's harassing you the whole game. Are they going to throw beer on you? They're
Right.
gonna,
Right.
you. And then the other ones, it starts to get into like that sort of fun kind of banter that you want to be a part of, where you're giving each other a hard time and you're laying into each other.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, for me, up until 2004, that was miserable. It was
Mm.
awful. It was sort of like being a Patriots
Ah,
fan growing up.
yes.
I had terrible years growing up.
Yes. Yes.
But the most fun for me is still thinking about the old Boston Garden and going to Bruins games, because the brawls that would erupt in the stands at a Bruins game were far more dangerous than anything that would happen at a Red Sox Yankees game.
I guess that is true. Yeah, hockey's a whole different. So I was in Connecticut, right in between, So I was a Whalers fan as a kid, and they're gone, of course.
Mark Howe, Marty Howe. So
Oh, are you
those
kidding
were
me?
fun years.
Absolutely. And I saw Wayne Gretzky so many times. I was right up. You can get great tickets for inexpensive. It's a very different time. But I love Boston, and I love going to those games, and it's just a part. It helps. Did you play baseball too, Josh?
I did. I played baseball growing up. I actually played in an over 40 league, and that's actually until I broke my wrist.
Mm.
And now I've got, two boys, one of whom is playing baseball in high school, and I sort of get into relive that a little bit. I absolutely love the game. I wanted to be a hockey player, by the way.
Ah.
I was the right size. Back then, I was the right size, 5'10", 180, perfect hockey size. Now,
Mm.
like a midget on the ice.
Right.
But I wasn't a good enough skater, which was really my
Bit
downfall.
essential.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, it's pretty important in that game. So, my dad was a D1 hockey player, and I grew up around
Ah.
hockey, and I just never made it happen. But I was a baseball player pretty much my whole life, and I still love. There's no bad day on a baseball field. There's
Mm,
much
mm.
no bad day at a game.
Were you a pitcher?
I tried for a little while. I tore my arm up pretty
Mm.
good. So I ended up playing as a kid. I ended up playing first base and outfield. As an adult in the over 40 league, I ended up playing second base, and I tried my hand at catcher for the first time.
Oof. Oof.
I had a great coach who really taught me the ropes. This guy Aaron. He's in. My kids go to Westlake High School, which has a pretty good sports history, and Aaron is in the Hall of Fame at Westlake. So he taught me the ropes as a 41-year-old catcher,
Wow.
trying to figure out how you catch a lot of junk. Because the
Mm.
pitchers in that league, when you're 50 years old, you're throwing a lot of junk. You're not throwing 90-mile-an-hour heat.
Mm-mm.
It was a great experience, but it also hurt. It hurt every time. Did you play ball? What did you play growing up?
I played soccer all my life, but I did play a lot of baseball, and I was on second base too. And you get used to where to be with the number of outs and everything,
Right.
and left, right hand, better. But what messed me up was we didn't encounter this, but was the shift. I know that you can't do that now, but
Yeah.
all of a sudden, like the shortstop is the second baseman, and the second baseman is the backup first, and that would have messed me up completely of where to be in those different positions.
I'm pretty grateful that playing second as an older guy, we weren't playing that way,
Mm,
but it was a learning experience to shift to that position because there was more strategy at second base than there was at first or there was in the
absolutely.
outfield,
Yeah.
and having to learn the ropes on that. And part of the reason I shifted to second is that I got slow as I got older,
Mm.
and I didn't have the range anymore. One of my I think it was the first or second at bat that I had in the over 40 league. I hadn't played in 20 something years. And I got thrown out at first base. And I get back to the dugout and I look at a shortstop and I'm like, hey, how close was that? And he's like, well, if you'd unhooked the trailer from your ass, you might have made it on time. And so I was like, I'm slow. It's not going to work out.
There's a great story with Roger Maris and Mickey Mantle. I don't know if it's true or not, but Mickey Mantle was on his way out. Maris was coming up, and he struck out, and he goes into the dugout, and he's throwing his bat, and he threw his helmet up, and Mickey, I'm terrible, I can't hit the ball, I can't do it. You got to help me, and rants, and Mantle says to him, before you learn how to hit the ball, you have to learn how to strike out.
That's an interesting story. I hadn't heard that one before. There's a lot of analogies to that in life. I think even Aerosmith has a quote about that. You gotta learn how to lose before you know how to win, or something along
Mm.
those lines. I like that. I'm gonna remember that.
Yeah, it's real true, and you can bring it to any. Do you like the new rules, Josh, about the larger bases, and you can only throw to first twice, and the time clock and everything in baseball?
I get a little torn up about it. I think that there are some things that are good for the game. Speeding up the game, I think, has a lot of value. uh, the opportunity to deploy more managerial strategy into the
Mm,
having to think those things through in a different way brings this whole other element to it that I have an appreciation for. And then there's this other part of me that is like this, they're like this old traditionalist kind of person. I said, do we really need to change that? Was it really that bad before? but in the end, I think that it gets a little bit better. I'm a little worried about electronic strike calling.
Mm.
I think that that could take something away from the game that we all appreciate, which is, there is a certain amount of banter that happens with the umpires. There's a little bit of stress going on. There's a feeling of that, pitcher, catcher, batter, ump at the plate, and so that one worries me a little bit more than the others. But generally speaking, I think most of these are improvements. Uh, I just happen to still love the game enough that I'm going to be okay either way. If they do something radical, hey, let's have 7 inning games instead of 9 inning,
Mm.
really upset. If they go to some, when they change the rules in hockey about how you deal with overtime, there's a piece of it I really
Oh,
love. Like
yeah.
I love watching 4-on-4, 3-on-3
Right.
hockey. I think that overtime makes a big difference. But then, if you went to imagine going into a shootout in baseball, what would that look like? Home run derby?
Mm.
Like there's a bridge too far,
Mm.
and so I hope it doesn't get to that point. But I'm okay right now. What are you thinking about all these rule changes? How are you on this? Are you a traditionalist? Do you like what's going on?
Well, I am happy that baseball made like major changes in 1 year. I mean, all that the larger bases, throwing over the first, the time clock and everything was just, it wasn't even subtly brought in. It was just, I think it was last year, or the year before, they just did it.
Yeah,
Um, so I was, because the numbers are way down, Josh. The people aren't watching as much as they were. So they've got to do something. Will it sacrifice the game? The cyclops there judging the strike zone is so interesting, because we've had it in tennis for decades and we've
right.
had it everywhere else. So now the batter kind of taps their head and they get to, they get to I don't know if they get a certain amount. I've seen like a couple of these plays so far. It's pretty interesting. One that kind of bothers me is that when you're stealing second, if they're on the shortstop or the second baseman who was there, they can't block second base. They can't stay in front of it.
Yeah. Uh,
This is kind of weird.
you're
We'll see
taking
what
away.
happens.
It's almost analogous to when they took away the crashing into the catcher.
Mm.
Look, I'm all for
Whew, Pete
let's
Rose.
yeah, right. I mean, who do you want barreling in on you at the plate?
Yeah,
You got somebody coming in like this. It's a whole other animal. Unless you're, Bruce. Is it Bruce Bochy? I can't remember how to pronounce his last name. Who's like 6'8", or Jason Barrett,
sure.
a giant. You taking away injuries, I'm all for. I don't want
Mm.
get hurt. But you're also taking away a piece of the competitive spirit that makes the game what it is. And are the players now going to grow up with that same level of grit that the players that we grew up with had? Because they knew that if they stepped out of line, then somebody else was going to do it to them. And
Mm.
now you can't really step out of line. And I'm still noodling on this whole, you got to learn how to strike out before you learn how to hit. Eh, I had that in my career, like learning, like I was a sales guy for almost all of my career, and I was terrible. I had awful experiences at the beginning, and it was all of that losing that gave me a different attitude. And I think it's a great sports quote. It's a great analogy. I need to read a little bit more about that. I'm a Mantle fan, so for all of his faults, I'm still a fan.
Hard not to be. Yeah, he's fascinating, fascinating specimen. And it's tradition over, entertainment over just, being loyal and maybe even compliant to the sport itself is an issue,
Yeah.
which right now compliance is your life, Josh. You're working a lot with compliance and technology and security. Kind of a sloppy segue, but I kind of made the bridge.
I think you did a good job. I'm proud of you.
Why should businesses become compliant, security wise compliant?
Oh, boy, there's so many things to think about inside of that. I mean, first of all, the rules behind compliance have everything to do with protection, with safety, with security, with making sure that you're protecting your own business, protecting your customers, protecting your partners, whoever it might be. And so there's all this fundamental logic sitting behind it that says that these are the right things to do. And so that's the good news behind it. The hard part is that compliance is typically a need-based thing.
Hmm.
It's something that people have to do. They're in a vertical, a geography, an industry. They have a process, whatever it might be, that's governed by a set of rules or a governing body. And there's so many different ways that these things are addressed, and they're forced to do it. And so there's this need basis behind it. Candidly, I I really enjoy the want-based part of this just as much, having all these years working in cybersecurity and knowing the benefits of taking the bad actors out, of blocking bad things from happening, of making sure that we are as safe a world
Hmm.
as we possibly can be. One of the ways, when I get up on stage and I brand myself, one of the things that I talk about is that what I do, I get to make the world a little safer or a little bit
Hmm.
better. And whether it's about the cybersecurity side of my background or about the compliance background, those things fit in really well together. Um, it's hard. I have empathy and at times sympathy for people that have to go through this, especially when they're going through it for the first time. And, right now, especially with things like CMMC sitting out there and this framework that's 429 pages, I think that's the number, something like that,
Hmm.
429 pages long, that people have to go through. It can be really heart-wrenching to watch, especially if you're a small company that's inside the defense industrial base and, maybe you're selling, nails or pipe fittings or anything that has this uh, CUI sitting inside of it that has this information that needs to be protected, and you might not be able to afford to go through the journey. And knowing that there are some states and some organizations that are supporting that and helping to fund that, there's a lot of challenge out there. And so, forgive me for bringing another element into it, but the why is one really important part of it. Helping people meet the need and figure out a way to get there. That's a team sport. We've all got to be a part of that. And I know you and I will probably talk about this, and we have briefly before, but the philosophy that I have, that having the MSP at the center of that, the vision that I have about that is that they're most capable of helping a client through that journey and helping them save time, save money, save stress. And I think that there's a way to change the landscape out there.
You mentioned CMMC, which is a explain what it is.
Well, CMMC, let's talk about it as a set of rules that the federal government is placing on companies that are part of the defense industrial base. And by the way, first of all, I'm not the most technical person in the world,
Hmm.
so I never claim to be one. But in the end, it's really about securitizing the systems, the process, the data to make sure that the information is not exposed in a way that represents a threat, whether it's to the government, to the customers, to the partners, to the company, whatever it might be. And it deploys all of these cybersecurity rules inside of it. And so, using NIST as a backdrop or using other things as a backdrop, it puts, let's call it 80,000 companies around the world, the vast, vast majority in the US, but there's plenty of companies in the defense industrial base outside of the US. It puts them in a position of having to adhere to a very stringent set of criteria. And it requires them to go through a process that looks like, let me see where I stand today. Am I even, close to the mark? What do I have to do to get myself ready for the assessment that's coming? Is there remediation activity? Is there a change in my process or structure that I need to undertake? How do I get help to do that? And then you get to go through the assessment,
Hmm.
which, I think that the teams that do that are generally very kind, but there's no forgiveness inside of this process. You
Hmm.
have to meet that criteria, and companies do fail. So it's a big challenge that's out there, and the more companies we see go through the process, I think not the easier the process will become, the easier it will be to understand what it takes to be successful because we'll have
Hmm.
experiential data behind it. And there's a lot of that I think companies are building right now. We're getting better at it every single day. I was sitting at, excuse me, at Write a Boom, uh, and uh, I was there for a couple of reasons. One of them was I was a panelist on a session that was talking to MSPs about demand generation. So nothing to do with compliance or cybersecurity,
Hmm.
just having been a part of an MSP. I had those principles in mind and did a session on that. And then we were also a sponsor of the event. And so we had a booth there. And the thing that drove the most dialogue, the entire set of days that we were there, was the fact that we were able to talk about CMMC. It was the most interesting thing for MSPs. It was maybe the most exciting thing for MSPs, and it was also the most confusing thing
Right.
for a lot of them. What do I do about this? How do I help my clients get through this? And luckily, it just so happens that our company has a team of experts, and there's plenty of others out there too. And so I'm not here to do an advertisement for our company. The There's a lot of people that want to help right now, and you think about the MSP community at large, and you've been a part of it for even longer than I have, and I've been a part of it for since before it was called an MSP.
Hmm.
Uh, the community that we are all a part of is one of helpfulness. It's one of it has a collegial nature to it that people genuinely want to help people do better, be better, and have an intimate relationship with success. And so I like how the community is rallying around this right now. It feels like there's a swell of support taking place, and I'm getting to see it and feel it every day. My one of our leaders was speaking at a Kaseya event a few weeks ago. Kaseya did an event in DC just related to cybersecurity, and one of our folks was on the panel talking about how you get through this, the protections, and and trying to help share some wisdom about how to be successful in the process. And at the end of the session, he had, literally like a line of people saying, "Oh, wait, share more, help me understand more." And it wasn't just that our person, his name's Eric, that it wasn't just him sharing it. Other people rallied around it
Hmm.
and said, "Well, let's talk about this." There was community there. It's We're very lucky to be part of this ecosystem of MSPs where people are really like that. It's not a selfish business. I mean, people want to make money, but it's a helpful business.
Yeah, most certainly. So, if you have a company, a managed service provider, or just a small business here, let's say in the States, that's not dealing with the government, do you still want to look at the CMMC requirements? Why is that germane for them?
Yeah, so the requirements themselves, which are primarily security based, are good requirements to look at. And there's a host of ways that smaller businesses can look at this. And so if you think about MSPs working through CIS or working through various different degrees of NIST, or trying to find the cybersecurity elements that sit inside of other things like PCI or ISO or SOC 2 or HIPAA or high trust or whatever they might be, almost all of them have a deep relationship with
Hmm.
having a very strong security posture. And so if you're a small business, by the way, I'm sitting here today inside of my wife's office. My wife is a financial planner. She's a wealth manager. She works inside, she's a financial forensic, and so she works inside of significant processes. She has to be certified. She has to have
Wow.
attestations to the kind of work that she does and what she's doing with the privatization, the securitization, the protection of client information, and the systems that she's working with all have to have that same degree as well.
Hmm.
And so even inside of a business that may only have 5, 10 employees, there's a relationship to this. And depending on what you do, the relationship may be one that's governed, or it may be one that is just deemed necessary by the clients. Do you have this or don't you? And
Hmm.
how are you dealing with this? But I think every business out there is thinking about, or should be thinking about, what am I doing to protect myself? I mean, think about small businesses' susceptibility to something like ransomware.
Hmm.
It could be the end of their company if they're not ready for that. And when you think about the tools that are being deployed, whether it's by some of the major players out there that fit into the MSP world, like Data or Kaseya or ConnectWise, and others, or you think about the tooling that's being driven by uh, cybersecurity companies. uh, they should be thinking about that every day.
Mm,
But candidly speaking, small businesses, I think they're the ones that in many cases need the most help and guidance on this. If you're a 5-person shop, a 10-person shop, it's pretty unlikely that you've got a CISO sitting on your staff.
mm.
You're sitting on Google trying to figure it out. And back to one of the things that's most important to us. That's where MSPs really make a difference. I look at what my wife's MSP does every day, and I'm grateful for what they do. They are the guidance behind everything that she's able to accomplish to protect her clients. It's hard.
Does NIST and CMMC and ISO, these compliance regulations, do they get it right, Josh?
That's a really interesting question. Look, in large part, I think that they do. I think that there is there's a it's very rare that I would look at a requirement uh, inside of any compliance journey that you would say, oh well, that's dumb, or
Mm,
why would you do that? I think the part where you might say it turns into wrong is when it becomes so cost prohibitive for a company to do it,
mm,
you're risking their livelihood, that you're risking their ability to grow. And that's where they need the most guidance. How do I accomplish this without harming my P&L so much that I go out of business? The CMMC case of a small shop that's part of the defense industrial base, I worry for them. And
mm.
and while I know that, you know, specifically we're doing things to try and help that process, there needs to be community around that. And, back to my philosophy, the thing that I've sort of lived and died by for, the last 15 years, look, I think the MSP is at the heart of that. And the more that they can represent themselves as not only the providers of those things, but as the strategists to help these businesses get through it, the logic of the compliance structure will be seen as something that they can be successful with. And so, that was a little bit of a long-winded way of saying, yeah, look, I think they get it right, but it doesn't make it easy.
Hmm. Yeah, it certainly does. And
Well, what have you seen so far? Like, you have this amazing background, and so look, I'm going to talk you up for a second. So
yeah.
you have this experience of being inside of this world as a leader, as a founder, as a consultant, as a promoter of everything from technology to process. You get to see and hear this every day. What are you hearing that, maybe you're just going to agree with me, or maybe you're hearing something different out there. What are you seeing?
Your brand deserves to be in front of the right audience decision makers, entrepreneurs, and professionals who are ready to take action. That's exactly who listens to the Joey Pinz podcast. Thousands of engaged business leaders and consumers tune in every week. Millions of views and listens across YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. Sponsors see real impact, higher engagement, brand trust, and conversations. We offer strategic partnerships tailored to your goals, including targeted ad placements, branded guest appearances, multi-episode and event sponsorships. Make your brand part of the conversation. Let's grow together. Visit joeypins.com/sponsor to explore sponsorship opportunities, or email us at sales@joeypins.com. The Joey Pinz podcast, where brands and thought leaders connect. When I talk to an MSP, a managed service provider, I started my MSP in the 90s, wasn't called it then, but I did
Right.
make my exit in 2019. But when I talk to them now, I do a lot of coaching and consulting, like you said, with MSPs and vendors. But when I talk to them now, the three things that keep them up at night have been pretty consistent over the last 3 or 4 years. And I was just in London last week talking to some MSPs as well, and it's the same three, maybe just a kind of a slight shift to it, but the same three. The first being security, Josh. They're worried about their clients getting attacked, and then they have to allocate all resources. They're flat rate. So they have to, allocate resources. The client's down. It's a lose-lose situation. So they have to be compliant. When compliance was starting to be talked about, I don't know, 10 years ago, 8 years ago, the MSPs ignored it. And now it's top of mind with them with security, because it's not just the tools. It's not right of boom. It's not what you do afterwards. It's also that you're compliant from the very beginning. Second is human capital, Josh. They're worried about their employees leaving their technicians that the root of their business. If they leave, how they're going to replace them. There's these very expensive high-end companies that are taking them away. They're worried about that. And third is just general growth. They're generally tech led. They're not good at organic growth engines. And so how are they going to grow? PE has poured hundreds of billions of dollars, and their friends are selling and buying cars, and like, what am I doing wrong? And 25% of the MSPs are making very good profit, plus 10. About 50% are breaking even, and then another 25% are losing money. Those are round figures, but they're pretty consistent over the last 5 or 6 years. So given all that, Josh, how do you help not only the managed service providers, but most importantly, helping the small to medium businesses that they support, which are the backbone of the world economy,
Yeah.
of which the MSPs do not get enough credit? How do you, with Control Case, with everything you know about compliancy, help those MSPs, help those SMBs?
Yeah, look, I love this question for a lot of reasons. I'm going to talk philosophy before I talk control case. Over the last 15 years or so, I've had the opportunity to try and help deliver monetization strategy to MSPs. How do you find a new growth engine that's going to be profitable, that's going to fit into what your capabilities are, and that's also going to grow your relationship with your customers, that's going to allow you to be more of a strategist with them, that's going to create retention with your clients. And so you're going to de-risk the idea that somebody else is going to come take them away. And how do you build that monetization strategy and relationship at the same time? And if you do a good job at that, how do you create more demand generation out of that? How do you create growth within your customer base? And how do you create growth through prospecting and showing people how you can do something different? And the 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 approach that I've taken inside of this over these years, and I'll talk about my experience outside of being inside of an MSP, and we could go to that if you want to, is that I, building the right partnerships that are sell with strategy, where you're getting the kind of help that you need, because a lot of these MSPs, they don't have staff to just say, oh, great, I've got 10 experts on the team to go do
Mm,
the new thing. How do you absorb something like that? And ensuring that whatever you're adding into the space is going to be helpful to your clients. It can't look, everybody wants to make money. MSPs are a margin oriented business. You've got to find a way to be profitable in this. But at the same time, you've got to find a way to make sure that you're delighting your clients every day. It is a relationship business. If you're working with a small business owner every day, you're dealing with the founder that's in the exact same position that you are. I've got to be profitable. This has to work for me. And when I take a look at what, those are all experiences from Avaya, from Palo Alto Networks, from
mm.
Datto, from Poly. I, when I look at it from the control case perspective and thinking about compliance specifically, historically, MSPs have not gone deep into this business. It's hard. It is complicated. It requires a specific level of expertise. It's cyclical, and so compliance journeys aren't necessarily something that's always happened on a monthly, quarterly, annual basis. Some of these are
Mm.
every 3 years, and so trying to map it out and plan for it has been hard for them. And the ability to help an MSP be able to go to their clients and say, "Look, I'm the center of your technological universe today. I also want to be the center of your compliance universe. And let me tell you why." The reasons are super logical. That's the beauty behind this,
Mm.
is that MSPs have the data, they have the evidence, they have the systems, they have the relationship. They're often a part of the strategy for those customers. And so they can see the future, they can see around corners. They have access to multiple systems. So whether it's their UCAS posture or their security posture, their network architecture or application development or whatever it might be, they have access to all of these things. And their clients today are typically going to one group for readiness. It could be the MSP, where the MSP is capable of doing that. It could be a third-party consultant. And then they're going to another third party to get their certification or attestation, to get that signature on the dotted line. And that creates even more chaos for the MSP. If you've got 10 clients that are going through a compliance journey and they're choosing 10 different third-party compliance partners, the MSP now has 10 different sets of documentation, 10 different requirements for supplying information, 10 different process flows, 10 different people that they're dealing with that are doing the actual QSA work. It's harming profitability, it's harming process flow, and now you've got somebody else in the middle of your relationship that is being viewed as more credible than you are. I think that's a shame. I don't. I am absolutely. Uh, it's disappointing to me, and having led an MSP before,
Hmm.
knowing the outcome of that when you're no longer that chief strategist for the customer, seeing the risk of not only the compliance work going somewhere else, but seeing the remediation work go somewhere else, because that's at the core of an MSP's profitability, is to be able to deliver remediation, whether it's
Hmm.
professional services, managed services, or VAR based. That's where the MSP should be living and breathing every day. And a third party sitting out there that's not a captive partner is a problem. It's a real risk for the business. And so my mission in this, the reason that I'm spending more and more time every single day talking about the vision and mission behind this, not just about our company. Look, our company does an amazing job at this, and I'm really proud of the work that we're doing. It's why I came to Control Case. It's one of actually many reasons why I came to Control Case. What I really want to see happen is I want to see disruption happen in
Hmm.
this space. I want to see compliance move to the MSP. The MSPs, look, they can never sign the paper. That's Fox in the henhouse. It's not going
Hmm.
to happen. But it doesn't mean that they can't be a part of this and a part of the entire journey. If you're doing readiness work today, good gosh, get the customer to route the actual attestation through you. Sometimes it's monetizable, by the way. And so there can be direct monetization in CMMC. There can't be, it's against the law.
Hmm.
But it's having that relationship be owned. And that's where MSPs should be living and breathing every single day. Look, I get passionate about this because I want to see the growth rate of MSPs go through the roof. And this is depending on who you listen to, it's a $30 billion space that is largely untapped by MSPs globally. And uh, I think we can do something about that.
Hmm.
Um, and I'm going to do that as a mission. I'm doing that as part of my job. I'm doing that as part of our role of Control Case. We've been doing this for hundreds of MSPs for a very long period of time. But I'm out there being mission oriented about it. I want to see that $30 billion route through the MSP. And because of that, not only do client relationships get better, but they are going to save their clients time, money, and stress, because their processes will be honed into this. And all of the other work that MSPs do at their core of who they are, everything related to BCDR, RMM, how they run their PSA, the different types of security tech that they're deploying, the people that they're putting on the street every time they roll a truck, it all fits into this compliance effort. And so they've already got the backbone ready to go. It's time to change the world a little bit, Joe.
Hmm.
I'm being a little bit bold about that, but I think it's time.
Josh, what's the difference between a leader and a manager?
Oh, wow. That's a heck of a topic shift. Look, I've been managed before many times in my career, and management has been oversight. It's been uh, almost like checking the boxes of, are you doing the things that you're supposed to do? Are you fulfilling your task oriented world in a way that fits whatever framework that they have inside of their company? I've been led before. And when I get led, I am learning, I'm developing,
Hmm.
I'm being put into positions where I have to stretch myself on a consistent basis. I'm growing. And uh, and so to put that, back into a direct answer to the question, Look, I think that leaders, they have a genuine care for seeing their people grow and get better. And part of that is altruism. It's genuinely caring about people. And I believe that being caring and compassionate is part of being a good leader. And part of that is knowing that, look, if you grow your people and they're happy and they feel like they're constantly developing, it does benefit the organization. It's a complementary strategy. And so the principles of leadership, I try and read about a lot. I certainly try and live it. I'm never going to claim to be perfect at it, but I think there is a really significant difference. Well, you've had the chance to be around so many people in your experience that have a hierarchy, and so let's call them a manager or a leader. What have you seen that's jumped out to you? What do you see the difference as?
Well, I see a lot of small businesses, including MSPs, falter because the owner thinks that they're a leader, but they're really a manager. So I've had conversations within my organization where I've had managers who thought they were leaders, and you have to kind of walk them through a little bit. And so sometimes the ego gets in the way and they don't want to I don't think Google gets enough credit for those two founders, Sergey and Brin there. At a certain point, they hired a CEO. They said, we can't grow this anymore. Microsoft never did it. Facebook never did. They never get enough credit for that. So my point overall in this question, Josh, is I think many small businesses, I think many MSPs, their owners, the CEOs have to become leaders and look at areas that they can improve, such as compliance, such as other areas that can bring their company to the next level. Sure, some of them have a lifestyle, organization where they're just floating by, they're getting a good salary, everything's fine, and that's completely up to them. But I wonder the discussion between management. I think both are very important. Very difficult to have the same person in both, I believe, but it's a discussion worth having.
Yeah, first it is, and the more people can get guidance about that, and so I think about the value of peer groups, for example,
Mm.
and the willingness for leadership of MSPs to be open and trusting in an environment, to be vulnerable inside of a conversation to get advice. Um, there's usually a good mix inside of those groups of people that are managers and people that are leaders. And a lot of that is also fundamental to the backgrounds that we all come from. And whether it's through your personal background, maybe that's part of it, but a lot of it's the professional background. A lot of MSP founders come out of a highly technical background where they have this love and engagement with the technology that they've been a part of. And they carry that forward into running a company. And when you're inside of that technical role, there's a lot of rules about what you have to do, whether it's about coding, whether it's about how you stuff a motherboard,
Hmm.
whether it's about how you measure, on your, yeah, I'm going back to my days of tech, whether you're measuring on an ohm meter or not, like there's guardrails about what you have to do. And if you follow the rules, your technology is going to work out, your program and your code is going to work out, things are going to come out as they are. And so you follow this step-by-step process to be successful. And there's a lot of technology that fits into that mode. And if you carry that forward into managing a group of 10 people, you miss out on the things that go outside of the rules about how you do care about people, about how you work to develop them, about how you work to change things, and about how you potentially step outside of process to say, how do I be forward thinking? How do I become more strategic in this? The things that, one of my first technology jobs, I was working at a company where we were building protocol converters. There are these gargantuan boxes for like Xerox and Amdahl, and they converted ASCII to EBCDIC. And there's like,
Hmm.
these 10 motherboards inside of them that are like 3 feet long by 2 feet wide. And, I did everything from stuffed motherboards to run a wave solder machine to run test.
Wow.
And so I did fall in love with technology then. Uh, but there are things about that role that I will never forget. Learning how to do code, being able to think in an if then else manner is meaningful. But those things didn't really carry into how I work to become a good leader for the people that are a part of the team. Um, the phrase that I use with my team and I try and live by it is, I work for you, not the other way around.
Mm,
It's my job to listen, to unblock obstacles, to find ways to help you get better. And I know that if you get better, then we're going to get better. It's going to
mm.
be a collective win. Um, it's a really interesting question. It's provocative.
It certainly is. And sometimes I'm pressed to give advice, Josh, and I don't like to give advice. I say, okay, here's something that happened to me, and here's what I learned. Perhaps you can learn from it. I think advice can get very dangerous. But when pressed, the three things that I think any small, medium business what I learned from the MSP, the three things that I did that made the biggest shift. Number one, you mentioned it before, was joining a peer group.
Yeah.
When I did that, I was no longer by myself.
Yeah.
It's very lonely being the entrepreneur, being the owner. It seems like your employees, the vendors, the banks, everybody's against you. You can't tell anything to a lot of those people. So joining a peer group, like-minded, people that have faults and are good at things that you are not. It's just one of the biggest shifts that ever happened. Uh, Two, of course, is there's many business operating systems out there. There's a couple that I like more than others, but it doesn't matter. Go to a business operating system, adhere to it, and run and follow the rules. And then lastly, where needed, hire a coach.
Yeah.
Tiger Woods has a coach. The professional athletes all have coaches. So those are my three pieces. Thoughts?
Oh, well, yeah, I'm gonna start at the end of that. Tiger Woods' coach, was it Butch Harmon? Am I
It was
remembering
one at one time.
that? Yeah.
Yeah.
So you think there's a phrase that somebody gave me once, deliberate practice done often with a coach who can coach.
Mm,
And, they were using that to describe Tiger Woods. And, it wasn't that Tiger Woods just went out and hit balls. He had a coach next to him, and the coach would have him hit a 63-yard wedge that would stop and then do that over and over and over again. And so the benefits of having a coach are meaningful. And I've had the good fortune to have a few of them in my life, at various different points in my career. I was just talking to somebody about one of them yesterday that, uh, that made a difference for me, that were able to, guide me, to show me some blind spots. And, even though giving advice at times is not the best thing to do, I did get advice at times that was meaningful to me. The, the opportunity to, find ways to work through peer groups is a way of having 10 other coaches around you,
mm,
because everybody's experience is
mm,
different. MSPs are not all the same. You and I know that. Every MSP has a different starting point, a different set of backgrounds inside of leadership, maybe even different reasons for getting into business. They have different tech stacks, they have different focus areas, whether it's how they deal with technology, vertical geography, whatever it might be. It's not that they're all snowflakes, but they're different. And when you get into these peer groups, you were writing about this just a few weeks ago. I was reading what you were writing about
that's
this.
right. Blog.
And and I found a lot of value in that. And I went back and I shared it with my network. And I try and do that often when I see wisdom out there. And you bring a lot of that to the table. And I appreciate it. The value that people getting out of, learning how to be in a peer group in and of itself is a massive learning experience. Like, wait a minute, I'm going to expose this information. I'm going to open up in this way to other people that are, moderately semi-competitive potentially with what I'm doing. How do I work my way through this? But they grow as people inside of that setting. And when they grow as people and open up their mind, the sky's the limit. It starts to expose all kinds of other ideas. And when those peer groups result in, an idea that's new or brave or bold for them to step into, and all of a sudden you watch an entire peer group go out and shift something that they're doing and all get success out of that, it's a win for everybody.
Mm,
It doesn't mean that they're doing battle with each other. There's so much growth opportunity out there that worrying about whether you're gonna lose a client to somebody else in your peer group, that shouldn't be a worry.
mm,
Um, what's the phrase? "A rising tide lifts all boats."
yeah.
Like, we rise the tide together. It's community based. And I know I said that earlier, but I always come back to that with MSPs. It's one of the reasons why I fell in love with doing what I do for these last 15 years is I like the community. I want to be a part of it. I'm driven for other people's success. You know, if you grow, I grow. And so if I only focus on your growth, I'm still going to win. And that's different than a lot of businesses out there. It's not cutthroat. There's moments that it's cutthroat. I mean, it happens, but you know, we all have to face competition at times. But generally speaking, it's a pretty awesome group of people that really, really want to do something good for themselves, for the world, and for their clients at the same time. Pretty awesome.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Josh, has there been anything in the last month or so that you've changed your mind on?
Wow, that's a really deep question. You know, I think that one of the things that has jumped out at me in the last month, and actually it's probably more the last 2 months, is that there are more opportunities for partnerships than I have seen in my career
Hmm.
right now than ever before. Um, I'm finding myself in more conversations, 2 or 3 a day, talking about creative partnerships. And I think of them more as alliances. So they're not channel to channel, it's not necessarily commercial. It's more about this mission of, and I'm going to use a phrase, by the way, that's going to show up in a campaign of ours. So forgive me for that, but there's a reason that it's going to show up in a campaign of ours. The phrase is better together. And I am finding not only that I'm seeking more better together relationships, but others are too. And it takes the community and makes it a little bit more broad than just MSPs. It brings other technologies into play, but it's been jumping off the page at me recently. I was in this conversation yesterday with a technology company that does something different around corporate education related to cybersecurity. And by the way, that's something that we do also. It's something that we have professional services around. And so even though I could have viewed that as being directly competitive to what we do, as we got deeper into the dialogue, I think we all realized that there is a better together story here, that there's a way for us to coexist, to be complementary to each other, and to have everybody benefit, our company, their company, and the clients who are sitting at the center of us trying to help educate them and get better. And that's just one example of so many out there. You know, I could probably rattle off about 10. I'm going to be careful about doing that in this kind of time frame,
Hmm.
but they're showing up at me over and over again. I think that there is an opportunity out there that that's not always obvious, and I'm trying to do a good job of looking beyond the obvious and saying, what's what's next out there? How do we get to something different? I mean, I'm talking about disruption inside of the compliance space, but there's more disruption available out there. And if we can find a way to have that benefit everybody where it's truly symbiotic and who wins, uh, man, that's good karma. I'll take karma all day long.
Hmm. Looking for a powerful way to reach business leaders and engage consumers? The Joey Pinz podcast connects brands like yours with an audience that listens, engages, and takes action. High impact exposure with a fast growing loyal audience. Millions of views and listens across major platforms. Sponsors see increased brand awareness, trust, and conversations. We make sponsorships simple and effective with custom ad placements that fit your brand, deep audience engagement through authentic conversations, long-term exposure across podcast platforms and social media. Don't miss the opportunity to connect with your ideal customers. Visit joeypins.com/sponsor to secure your sponsorship today. Or you can email us at sales@joeypins.com. The Joey Pinz podcast, where conversations drive results. So, Josh, I think you know my story. I started the MSP back in the 90s, and I was working way too hard and not paying us, putting my own health in the back seat, 14, 16-hour days, stranger to that. And next thing you know, I'm at the doctor and she tells me I'm at 340 pounds. And
No,
if, yeah,
I can't even
yeah,
picture it.
Yeah, yeah, there's plenty of pictures I have, yeah,
Uh,
so and she says, "If you don't lose this weight, you're not gonna see your daughter graduate." My daughter was just born. So it scared the life out of me, right? So I'm driving home, punching the steering wheel. What have I done? This I can mess with me all I want, but now I've got this family, I've got this beautiful daughter. So I spent the next 6, 7 months, lost 130 pounds, and you can't look at it as a finishing line, right? You've got to make lifelong changes. And so when I tell this story, people always, what's your secret? What'd you do? And there's no damn secret, Josh. Discipline. That's how I lost it. I got focus. I got motivation. I got willpower, etc. That's how I lost the weight. So I try to keep it off. How does discipline play a role in your life, Josh Hoffman?
First, um, wow. I mean, I've heard the story from you before in short form about finding a better path to health. I don't think I realized the significance of the numerical values
Yeah.
behind it. So you must be so proud. I'm looking at you and just, guy to guy, I'm proud of you for doing
Yeah.
it. So it's pretty spectacular. Look, for me, uh, to answer the question directly, discipline plays a role in my life every single day. There is a set of things that I need to do in my personal life to make sure that I'm living up to the challenges and opportunities that are in front of me, and to make sure that I have the right kind of relationship with my two boys, with my bride, with my friends, with my family, also with myself and my own health. And I've become far more rigorous over the years about taking care of my own health and for many different ways. I didn't lose that much weight, but I probably dropped 40,
Nice.
and I certainly feel all the better for it. It plays a role in my professional life in just as significant a way. And the discipline areas that I focus on, a lot of rigor around making sure that people understand goals, that people understand what the future is supposed to look like, that they understand that the more predictive they become, the easier it is to solve problems. Lots of discipline around measures and metrics. And that's not always the easiest thing to keep up with. But if you don't do it, then you're going to suffer the consequences, and something's going to surprise you, and you should
Mm,
never be surprised. I spend a lot of time in the discipline of being disciplined in relationships, and making sure that the time that I spend with people is high quality, that it's developmental. And that's not always easy. And that's where the discipline part comes in.
hmm,
Sometimes it's really easy to say, I've got to solve this problem. Let me take 3 minutes and solve it and move on, versus taking what maybe is 20 minutes, a little bit more time out of your day, but bringing somebody along with you and helping them be a part of it, and knowing that they're going to be better for it. And because of that, we're all going to be better for it. There's a discipline associated with that.
hmm,
Again, I'm not always perfect at it, but I do my best to try and remember that. And the other thing is, people sometimes make fun of me because it's hard to get the smile off my face. But being disciplined about loving what I do and not letting that ever escape me. I don't
mm,
you talk about those 14, 16-hour days. Sure, I still do that sometimes. But it's because I love what I do, not because I feel like I'm sitting inside of some meat grinder that,
mm,
trying to push me out. There was a time in my career that it felt that way. It doesn't feel that way anymore. And that's because I am incredibly focused on making sure that I do what I love. And there's probably other examples too, but those are some daily examples. There's not a day that goes by that each one of those things does not enter my brain. By the way, there's other areas. I was having a conversation with somebody in the organization the other day about having rigor around an area that I had not, candidly, been putting some rigor into.
hmm,
And it was a learning moment for me. And being vulnerable about that is another area of discipline. It's being willing to say, I don't know, or I got it wrong, or I need to do this better. As long as you and I have been doing things, there's there's a learning opportunity sitting out there. And if I can absorb it and then find a way to share it, man, life's pretty good.
hmm.
So, by the way, I'm going back to you. I'm super proud of you. That's an amazing story, and I'm sure that your daughter must be incredibly grateful, and I'm sure your steering wheel is probably also appreciating not getting punched at this point. So,
Yeah, it sure is. So with discipline, habit, rigor, and routine, fascinating synonyms, Josh. Josh, what motivates you?
uh, lots of things. Look, family first. I am incredibly motivated to make sure that I have the kind of family and personal life that is satisfying and loving and happy for the people that are around me. I'm motivated by helping others grow and learn and develop. I have a genuine belief that I used the phrase in a different context before, but you grow, I grow.
Mm,
If I am delivering a professional world where people are constantly growing, the phrase that I use, I was talking to you earlier about, how I brand myself. One of the phrases that I use is helping people achieve a point in their career that they only thought aspirational, and I live by that. I want to see people live out their wildest dreams, and if I stay focused on that, and I do because it really does motivate me. I get such joy out of watching somebody grow their career, grow their compensation, even if at times it means they go to another company. Uh, if I can do something like that, I've done something good for the world. It's
wow.
it's incredibly valuable to me. And by the way, at heart, I'm a sales guy,
Mm,
and so that's my DNA. Even though I have this analytics background and I have this background in technology, although I'm not so good at being a technologist today as I used to be, I'm a sales guy, and so what motivates me almost more than anything is make the number.
mm,
Make sure that the target that's sitting in front of me is one that is consistently, constantly, not just met, but beat. And those targets are what drives it. By the way, the target is not always about, do you make quota or, did you make the specific P&L number? If you're living a life of discipline, you've probably got 20 targets sitting
mm,
around you that are important. And that fits really well into the MSP leadership thing. It wasn't, I had various different targets. How fast are we growing? How fast are we taking care of the different parts of the P&L, the VAR, the PS, the MS side of things? How are we taking care of the development of our people? Are our professional services employees utilized? Are the tools satisfying the customer's requirements? Are we meeting the strategic needs of the clients? That you could go on and on and on. Some of those are numerically related to a P&L. Some of those are related to outcomes and making sure that you're driving that. And so, and in every role that I've had, there's probably been a different set of criteria, but there's always criteria. How about you? What are some of the things that motivate you? I mean, I got the story certainly about your family. What else motivates you?
similar to you. You cite family, impact, drive, achievement. So given those motivations, Josh, how do you measure success?
Oh, a lot of it's the same criteria, right? So, if I'm walking into a house full of smiling family members,
Mm,
that's a pretty good sign of success. If I'm watching my boys achieve something that they're working hard towards, it's a pretty good sign of success. It comes from a variety of those different things being put together. There's certainly the success that I talked about related to people that I work with and people that I work for, and using that phrase, if I work for them, not the other way around, and watching them get a promotion, watching them overachieve against their targets, knowing what their targets are and helping them achieve them, whether they're personal or professional. There's the numerical ones. So I look at the numerical success values. Again, look, my role is helping to grow companies, whether it's growing the company that I'm a part of or helping to grow other companies. I'm looking at those numerical values and saying, did we achieve the number or not? If I'm working with a partner right now, then I'm putting a goal on the table. There's a stake in the ground that says, here is what we're supposed to achieve, and we're going to measure ourselves against it. And if we don't see the right kind of progress and we need to make a change, that's okay.
Hmm.
It does. You don't always set the right strategy at the beginning. You got to be willing to be wrong. And so I measure success emotionally and numerically. Is the too long didn't read version of that.
Iterate and improve.
Yeah. Amen.
Josh, so cool talking to you today. We've been talking for a while. I'm glad we finally got together and did it here and recorded it for others. Anybody watching or listening, how can they get in touch with you?
Oh, well, there's a lot of easy ways to get in touch with me. So first of all, LinkedIn, just so you don't have to remember anything, is always a super simple way to get a hold of me. You'll find me out there. There's always the opportunity to email me or call me, but you can go to our website. You can find contact information. You talked about discipline before. I really do try and look at every single contact that comes into our business and help make sure that we're doing the best that we can. But on a more personal level, I really live for helping others find an opportunity to grow. And so, really, feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. We'll find a way to connect, and I'll do my best to be helpful. And we'll figure out other ways to find contact information. I'm just really grateful for the opportunity to spend time with you. You and I have spent time together before, and I've got this profound amount of respect and admiration for what you've accomplished, for how you do things today, for how you help others on a regular basis. The experience, the wisdom, the wit, to be cliche about it, but the your ability to help communicate and articulate how people can get better. It's a constant with you. And so, getting the chance to be with you in this setting, I'm grateful. So, thank you for having me be a part of it.
Thank you, Josh. I'm grateful as well. Joshua Hoffman, Hoffman on LinkedIn. We'll make sure to put it in the show notes and, of course, controlcase.com for the company website. Can't wait to see you next time in person, my friend. You be well.
I'll count on it. You too.
Bye now.
Bye.
Thank you for listening and or viewing Joey Pinz Discipline Conversations. Please share this episode with one or two of your friends who you think may benefit from the episode. Our website, www.joeypins.com. There you'll find lots of resources and you could join our mailing list. Please follow us on all our social media, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Podcast information, the video version of our podcast is on YouTube. Please subscribe. Audio is on all major podcasting platforms. Please follow them. And if you like it, please consider giving 5-star rating. Would really appreciate that. Thank you again for listening or watching Joey Pinz Discipline Conversations.